Gravel bikes in many people's eyes are just a bike industry thing to get us to buy more bikes, sort of like SUVs in the car world. Now, I love them because right now, that's gravel bikes by the way, not SUVs. Right now they are progressing massively and they're great fun to ride. So how much have they actually progressed? Well, what if I told you that the DNA of this thing goes back donkey's years to a time where everything was in black and white? If you look at a photo from the 1923 Tour de France, what you're looking at, basically, is a head tube that is slacker than an American's trousers. There's going to be a long wheelbase and something in the region of 40mm tyres. It is, in effect, a gravel bike. And look at the get-up of this chap. He's got a tash, he's got a top made from sustainable wool, he's got hipster shoes. It's basically a modern gravelist. But something tells me that he won't be stopping for a skinny matcha. Red wine and cigs are probably more of his diet. The fact though is that roads outside of towns and cities in Europe took quite a bit of time in the 1900s to be made with asphalt rather than dirt or cobbles. And that meant that the Tour de France bikes were built to suit. Especially when the race entered the mountains for the first time in the early 1900s. These were adventure riders and their bikes were built like it. Hey Andrew, have you seen my new helmet?
Jazzy that.
It is jazzy, isn't it? It's from Abus Airbreaker. Thank you to them for helping to support the channel. We're gonna fast forward to the early noughties now with Robbie Williams at his prime because gravel bikes were about to become a thing again. The modern gravel bike that we know today came mostly from touring and cyclocross bikes, like this one. This is a 2005 Kinesis Crosslight, and it's a bit of a mishmash of things, but it has all of the kind of modern gravel bike things that we have come to suspect, but there are a few differences. First off, one of the key things that is actually giving me nightmares, because I used to hate these things, we have cantilever brakes. Now these things were awful in the dry, and if you took them anywhere near a muddy cyclocross race, they just were there for effect. They didn't slow you down, they had no feel, they were terrible in every way, and I spent far too much of my youth trying to make mine work. And then we have the drivetrain. So this is a Tiagra 105 build, and this has a triple chain set in the front, which is more of a thing that we saw on touring bikes from the early days, but some cyclocross bikes use them. And then at the back end, we have a pretty closely spaced, by today's standard anyway, cassette. Now, I love the way that this thing is cabled because it was built for simplicity, and it was built cleverly because these cables ran along the top of the top tube, but also they were designed so that you could throw the bike onto your shoulder without clouting your shoulder on the braze-on things there. That wouldn't have been comfortable. So this was seen as really comfortable. It's got a flattened top tube for shouldering and everything. Then we come to the front of the bike with this fork, which has been actually built to take both rim brakes and disc brakes, because disc brakes in 2005 were starting to work their way across from kind of mountain bikes. Another massive difference, another way that modern gravel bikes have changed massively, is in the tire clearance. So in here, we actually have plenty of space around these tires, but then at the back, you're really limited. You can't fit much more than what's on here, because down at the chainstays, they were still really, really narrow. Still, this is a fantastic looking thing, and I can't wait to test this out today. And then we come to this, which is one of the most modern gravel bikes that I think that you can lay your hands on. This is from Canyon, this is the Grizl, and this is chock full of tech. Now, whether you find this tech useful to you and your gravel, I ain't gonna say anything. But for people that want this, this has all sorts going on. First, what we've moved from is an aluminium frame to a carbon frame. That's not necessarily gonna be lighter, it probably is. It's going to bring all sorts of benefits. So we've got maybe more aero tube shaping. We've got internally routed cables that, to be fair, they might not be as serviceable as the Kinesis, but they do look a lot tidier. And then the main thing on this bike that I really wanted to get this bike for is the suspension. I've used this suspension fork and it's very good. And suspension in gravel is really becoming a thing. This offers you not too much travel, certainly not as much travel as you would get on even the lightest XC mountain bikes, but it just gives you enough that kind of opens the bike up to some really rugged terrain. Next up, we have the tire clearance. This is not actually rocking massive tires. This is on only 45mm Schwalbe Pro tires, but there is space in here for some huge tires. We're talking mountain bike tires, 2.1, 2.2. So you can put some massive rubber on here and you can have the suspension. One of the key changes that you can't actually see is with the geometry. So these bikes actually became a lot lower in the bottom bracket to offer you a bit more stability at speed. The wheelbase has got longer. That's a lot to do with just accommodating the massive tires, but they've also become a little bit slacker in both the head and seat tube angles. That just calms the handling down over real techie stuff. A lot of bikes like the Kinesis were built for touring, but also cyclocross. And in cyclocross, you do want really agile handling. So you're generally taking on fields, but fields with very tight turns in them. And I'm sure you've wanted me to get to this already, and I will address the elephant in the room, is this bar. Oh, it's a looker. So this is really Canyon's kind of more gravel touring adventure kind of bar. And it just means that you've got a bag in the front that you can open up really easily. You can pop your Garmin on the front as well, which I do think they've designed it quite nicely. Probably not for me, but I like that it exists. It will suit someone. Moving on to the group set now, and we have a massive change. Obviously, the Kinesis, fully cabled. This has electric wireless shifting and then hydraulic disc brakes. So the wireless shifting is going to work consistently through all kind of conditions. I know for a fact that if my cyclocross bike back in the day got a bit muddy, grit got into the cables, the shifting wasn't going to work so well. Electronic shifting just works the same whatever the weather. And then hydraulic disc brakes are a massive improvement in my opinion compared to cantilevers, because like I said, cantilevers barely worked. Actually probably made me quite a fast racer because I had no brakes, but it is nice to have the control that disc brakes bring. And finally, on this bike we have tubeless tires, which are a massive improvement for me off-road. More grip, more puncture protection. If they do get a little thorn in them, they're probably going to seal. I compare that to a clincher setup. It's night and day, but also like I used to race cyclocross on tubular tires. They were a faff. They were really a faff. If you're a pro, great. If you've got a lot of time to sniff glue in your shed, fine. But for me, tubeless on these things is just easier. And you know what else is easier? Exploring. In the good old days, you'd be stopping all the time to check where you were going. This would involve unfurling a paper map and trying to use the sun to figure out which way is north, which is really difficult today because it's cloudy. It was all very slow, but now with apps like Relevate, you don't even need a bike computer to get you to where you need to go. It's an app for iPhone and soon Android, which is perfect for exploring more of your local gravel trails. It turns your phone into a very capable bike computer, and unlike Google Maps, I can see all of the gravel trails. So I can explore more trails without getting lost. But what if your mates are always getting lost? Well, this has a group track feature so that even if one of you zooms off up the road, you'll always be able to find each other. But you can race each other too. With a quick tap on the screen, you can start recording a segment, even if you don't have one previously set up. I've got my power meter and heart rate connected, but if you don't have a power meter, Relevate has a virtual power meter built in to give you a pacing guide. Check it out via the link in the comments. Well, given this is a YouTube video and there has to be a winner, I've come up with a few fun tests to find out what 20-something years of innovation has done for gravel bikes. We're going to do a back-to-back run on a very fun bit of single track. Let's go. Let's go for the Grail. Hop in, because if you've got suspension, You've just got to hop everywhere like this, little kicker. Woo! It's just so playful, this bike. It gives you the confidence, or it certainly gives me the confidence. Maybe, you know, some off-road riders, you're gonna be a lot better technically than I am. But the suspension, the wide tires, they really give me the confidence to kind of push the bike a bit closer to its kind of limits. It's very compliant, like those little compressions through the kind of puddles, absolutely no problem whatsoever. And then if I see a rock like that, yeah, it's gonna kick my ass in the air. But apart from that, it does absolutely nothing. Right, woo. Little descent here. This is where, oh, that suspension. Well, you've got a techie line on the right and the boring line on the left. So, and then that gate post is the end of our little lap. And let's go and do it on the old school bike. 330. Drop in. Oh, instantly, this geometry feels so much steeper. I feel way more over the front wheel. And that has some fantastic benefits, but it's not on this. It's not on this. When you get to that kind of mud that's got this, you know, the slime on top and then no real bottom, you just find that the narrower tire just bites down in there way better. This old school 105 has a very funny feature that, like, if you press for a, you know, quickly tap for a number of gears at the back, and it'll basically hold it until you've finished selecting the gears and then dump them all in one go. I am having to pay attention. I'm really having to pay attention. Okay. See, down here, instantly, I have got the brakes squealing, I've got the tires chattering already. They're going, can you hear them going tick tick? Yeah, like that. And I can hear the front one going like that, which is not exactly great. So I'm going to have to be way more careful through that sort of stuff. The braking on this actually is dry. It's not so bad, but they are, oh come on, they're quite grabby. Now that is the lowest gear that I've got. Oh, keep you fit, this bike, tell you that. Okay, and across the line. 340. There is one final thing, one big elephant in the room that we need to address, and that is the price. Because we reviewed this in the very early days of road.cc, slightly different model, but £935-ish for a similar build. This Canyon is now £5,599. Quite a difference. Adjusted for inflation, this is about 1,600 and something quid. So that's still a massive gulf in price. Now, obviously from this to this, you've gone from an aluminium frame to a carbon frame. We've gone from rim brakes to disc brakes, clinchers to tubeless. We've got a whole new geometry. We've got, you know, tubeless tires, electronic wireless shifting. You've got the option for a power meter in there. You've got a carbon custom handlebar with neat storage solutions. You've got storage inside your frame. So there is a hell of a lot more going on with this bike, not to mention the suspension, which does actually add quite a bit to the price. But is this, what's that, £4,000, something like that, more? Is it worth more than this? Especially these bikes, you can pick them up on eBay for a few hundred quid, and you can go out and have all of the fun that I was having without dropping several £1,000s. Now, for me, I'm not going to argue the case for this, because that price difference, that is too much for me. I couldn't stand here and tell you that, yes, this is way worth it. You've got to make that decision for yourself. Personally, I have a bike kind of like this that I've built up gradually. So for me, a lot of the cost is worth it because I feel like I can maybe have a bit more fun, and maybe it's just a nice flashy thing to have and spend my money, waste my money on. But for you, do you think it's worth it? Let me know in the comments below. And which would you actually buy? I think there's a strong case for both of them. I've had a fantastic day. I think my winner has to be an older bike like this, because you could build it up for super cheap and you could have a ton of fun without wasting a load of money. Especially if you're new to the sport, you could do this, get into it, see if you like it, and then if you want to spend more money one day, then you can buy something like this, which will take you to loads of places. But so will this, for a fraction of the cost. I've had a fantastic time. Yes, thank you very much to Tim for lending us this bike. If you'd like to see another of these kind of videos where we compare an old bike to a new bike, well, we did that, and that's, I don't know if the rest is here, that's just up here. We compared a steel bike to my Athos. I think the steel bike won that one too. No, it was my Athos, but I got a soft spot for my Athos. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Cyclocross bikes from the mid-noughties are fantastic.